The following presentation was made possible by the Alltech Media Group, a Southern California multimedia company providing exponential branding and marketing services to all their clients. The Alltech Media Group understands the value of the 3W strategy, providing their clients proven, trackable results. Let us make it easy for you to grow your business. Visit alltechmedia.com.
Our keynote speaker this morning was recently re-elected to represent the residents of the 1st District on the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. In 2006, he was elected to serve in the California State Assembly, where he focused on restoring private sector jobs, helping improve our local transportation infrastructure, and advocating for adequate public safety services. A resident of Riverside County since 1971, he is a successful local small business owner who has owned and operated his investment business in Riverside County for 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Riverside County Supervisor Kevin Jeffries.
Well, good morning. It's an honor to be here, and some really great speakers beforehand. When I walked into the room, the first thing that was mentioned to me by my friends was I had no tie on. I have an allergy, and I have a note that says I don't have to wear a tie. It doesn't work on Tuesday board meetings, though. My colleagues insist. I was honored to serve with Lou while I was in the state legislature, and Lou was a very inspirational speaker. I felt after his speech this morning that I needed to go back to college and drop out all over again, so Lou, thank you for your speech. And for the commander at the base, really, Porsches? You want Porsches at the base? You know, you got to get past several council members' jurisdictions with those Porsches to get them there. I think they got Jason Bourne over there. Today I'm here to talk about two different things real quickly. First is the county budget. We're in a bit of trouble. So much trouble that we are basically spending $1.17 million per week more than we have coming in. $1.17 million per week going out the door faster than it's coming in. This isn't a direct result of typical political mismanagement of the funds. This is a result of the perfect financial storm hitting the county, primarily in the judicial system. Our criminal justice branch has been hit with a 1-2-3 punch across the state, and it's really hit home in Riverside County. It started many years ago with overcapacity, overcrowding in our jails, and early release. It continues today. It was made worse when the state decided that the overcrowding at the state prisons would become a local government problem instead of the state fixing it. So when the state prisons were at capacity and beyond, the judges came down pretty hard on the state. A decision was made to basically reclassify prisoners, convicted individuals. The decision was made that if you were a low-level offender in the state's eyes, you would not be sent to state prison, you would go to the county jails. Previously, if you were sentenced to less than a year as part of your sentence, you spent your time at a county jail. If you were sentenced to a year or more, you went to state prison. That's a general framework of it. Now, in Riverside County, our jails are holding individuals who have been sentenced to 14 years. Now, our jails were never designed for that. That wasn't what the role of a county jail was. So now you have this shift of prisoners, instead of being sent to the state prisons, they're being held in the county jail. So take a bad situation before, make it worse. And then, the wisdom of the voters across the state, we decided that we wanted to relax some of the sentencing going forward for those convicted of what's considered to be, at the time, low-level offenders. It was primarily, I think, the voters were trying to be sympathetic to those who had drug-related problems and needed counseling and services instead of prison time. Unfortunately, it went a little bit more beyond just those individuals. You could basically walk into a Walmart, and I'm not trying to give out any ideas here, and pick up about $940 worth of items and walk out the door, and you're just going to get a ticket under the new sentencing. So how many times can you do that? Probably unlimited until somebody figures it out. We now have a whole new class of individuals who are being sentenced differently. That's putting a stress on all of our criminal justice system. It's not only the prisons the county jails under Sheriff Sniff. It's also our probation department, it's our DA, it's our public defender. They're all being hit with the increased workload. While all this was unfolding, the county was notified that it was going to be sued by a prisoners' rights group called the Public Prisoner Law Office or something close to that, PLO, which used to have different meaning to a lot of you older folks. We were sued. They had been suing counties up and down the state very successfully. So we knew we were in trouble. The settlement was basically related to health care. We are now required under the settlement agreement to provide prisoners in our county jails with the best health care available in California. Greater than most of you as taxpayers will enjoy with your private health care services. So much so they have to get service within hours, where we might wait weeks to get an appointment. That cost alone, first year startup, and then it escalates from there, is $40 million a year more for us in additional costs, and continues to escalate from there. So as that is unfolding, as the criminal justice system challenges are unfolding, we are also building a new jail out in the desert to accommodate the increased capacity that we need. That is literally hundreds of millions of dollars for a new jail, which really is the one-time cost. I mean, capital funds we tend to be able to do as government. It's the ongoing costs. Once you build it, then you have to staff it. And if you ever want to have expenses, it's personnel. You all know that as businessmen and women, it's personnel. So we are looking at dramatic increases in staffing costs going forward. You start adding all this up, it's all hitting at the same time. You find yourself in a really financial tough spot. Now revenues are increasing across the county, which is a good sign, because that means taxpayers are paying more because they're working. Jobs, the unemployment rate in Riverside County, I think, is down to 5.4 or somewhere in that range. A pretty good number for Riverside County, actually. Most of us feel that low unemployment rate when we get on the freeways in the morning, because everybody else is going to work. And so you could feel the pressure across the county. For us at the Board of Supervisors, dealing with a $1.17 million per week deficit is incredibly challenging, because we don't have that much control over the discretionary funds that are left. We have a budget, this is hard to believe, we have a budget of roughly $5.4 billion a year at the county, here in Riverside County. Riverside County is the 10th largest county in the nation. 10th largest county in the nation now. So out of that $5.4 billion, we get to control, if we're lucky, about $900 million. The rest of it is all pre-programmed automatic spending as funding is provided generally by the state and the federal government. Our largest department is not the Sheriff's Department, it's not the DA, it's not the Fire Department, it's the Department of Social Services, at roughly $1.9 billion for social services. So by the time you get done deducting all of these mandated spendings, all of these social programs, we're left with about $900 million, and then that's divided up between the jails, the sheriff, DA, public defender, fire department. You just go down the list, animal control. They're all part of that system. So we find ourselves with this shortfall. Not a very pretty sight in a good economy, because we're having to dip into our reserves while the economy is good. The rainy day fund should be used for when it's a rainy day. We're not in a rainy day, and we're having to dip into those funds, and that concerns me the most. So We've implemented some dramatic restrictions. They are not what I would call freezes because we didn't want to tie everybody's hands because we still have business to do in the county. We have 2.3 million people, give or take, to take care of across the county, so we can't exactly shut down, freeze government. That's not good business. But we have put in a lot of restrictions on new spending, on new hires, travel, all those things, so that I believe we are on a path to success, but it is going to be a painful path to be sure for the next year to maybe 2 years or longer. The challenge we have is we need to hold spending flat. Some departments will go up, others will go down, but we have to hold spending flat for basically the next 4 fiscal years. Now, if any of you can name any government entity that has held its spending flat for 4 fiscal years, I'd like to know what that entity is, because I've not found it yet. But that's our challenge going forward. So I think we can do this. We may have to do some more cuts going forward, but I'd like to believe we're on a good path now. I was very skeptical that we were going to be able to do it, but I'd like to be proven wrong, to be honest with you. This is one of those times I want to be proven wrong. I want to be shown that we can do it, that government can actually hold the line. So that's kind of where we're at financially with the board. I'm glad to say I'm back. It seems counterintuitive to say I'm happy to be back with that kind of budget situation, but nonetheless, I enjoy drilling down into budgets. It was part of my experience in the state legislature, and as a water board member prior to that, we drilled down into budgets. Everybody in the state legislature, for the most part, was assigned to budget subcommittees. You were assigned several different departments. You drilled into those departments. You understood them. You understood their challenges. I thought that might be a really good idea at the Board of Supervisors. Hey, why not? Let's break up the board into different groups. Let's drill down. You would have thought I was burning down the village with that idea. My colleagues did not see that extra workload as any fun and killed me there on the dais. However, as the seriousness of the situation has evolved, they're beginning to recognize that maybe perhaps we should start drilling down a little bit more, so I'm glad for that. Moving on to the next topic, March Air Reserve Base, something near and dear to not only the commander here, but everybody in this room. The March base has gone through a lot of transitioning over the years. As it went through BRAC some years back, it became the reserve. A lot of land was declared surplus around the base. That land was then basically fell into the county's jurisdiction. It was unincorporated, non-city land. The county, in cooperation with the city of Riverside, the city of Moreno Valley, and the city of Paris, formed a joint powers authority for economic renewal of that area. Take that non-tax producing land, turn it into an economic driver and generate revenues. Worked really, really good. You see an incredible amount of new jobs that were created along the 215 corridor. The key to the success of the March Joint Power Authority was the redevelopment area, RDAs. Cities used them, counties used them. Very successful and very controversial. Across the state, there were a lot of abuses of redevelopment project areas, funds spent for questionable purposes. Governor Jerry Brown at the time decided to take up that issue because of the abuses that were getting a lot of press. And rather than fixing the problems, the legislature threw out and eliminated redevelopment areas across the state. For cities, they're having to wind down everything, turn it over to oversight boards, basically unwind it all. For the March Joint Powers Authority, that was its lifeblood. That's how it worked with new development, to attract new development. It goes away, that special revenue stream capturing new growth revenue for the JPA, it disappeared. The golf course was assigned, for those of you who don't know, there is a golf course out there off the 215, right by the cemetery. The golf course was turned over to the JPA as well. Unfortunately, the golf course is losing, or has been losing, about $400,000 to $500,000 a year. Well, when you're a JPA and you don't have that new revenue stream in and you have a big draw, that draws down on your finances. And then we get into the issue of protecting the base, one of the primary missions of the Joint Powers Authority. Something went off the tracks. Trying to find a solution for the golf course Turn to the development community. What could we do there different that would turn it around? Keep it as a golf course, but still generate some new revenues, perhaps some sort of mix of development along the golf course. It went from maybe some luxury homes or something in that venue along a golf course to being a proposal for 1,600 homes and pretty much most of the golf course gone. The problem is when you put homes and high-density occupancy next to a base, an air base, you get complaints, which doesn't seem right, but if you move next to an airport, what kind of noise do you think you're going to hear? Nonetheless, it happens today. It continues to happen across the areas along the 215 where people live. A lot of calls from the Orange Crest area. Every call that is made to complain about the noise of the air base is documented at the Pentagon. Because when BRAC reoccurs, the base realignment process starts over again, and they have to evaluate every single base across the country. They look at the pros and cons to the base, and if there are lots of negative comments about a base, they notch up a few levels to consideration for elimination or future realignment. So needless to say, the leaders out at the base are very concerned about what's going to happen. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen. The JPA should not have ventured into the business of housing. He's standing up, so that's telling me to hurry up. So, just want to conclude with, we decided that it was time to look at reforming the Joint Powers Authority amongst the three cities in the county, focus its primary mission on preserving and protecting the base, get for the most part, eventually get it out of the development business and let the three cities in the county who should have logical jurisdiction make sure that is done properly and under the jurisdiction of their local entities while keeping the Joint Powers Authority in place to supervise with peer pressure or whatever is necessary those entities to make sure they no longer build projects that infringe on the future of the base. So that's, in a nutshell, that's where we're going, and I thank you all for letting me address you this morning.